discussion. So before we formally start our discussion, may I ask first everyone to kindly bow down your heads and close your eyes as we acknowledge the Lord in our lesson. Lord Heavenly Father, we would like to thank you and honor you for this great and wonderful day that you have given us. Thank you for your grace and your protection, especially, Lord, for the last night. And thank you for the strength that you have given to each of us. And thank you for this opportunity that we have gathered to learn something new from our course. And we do acknowledge, Lord, that without you, we are nothing. And having said that, we ask for intelligence and wisdom, understanding, Lord, the concepts behind this topic. And we do entrust to you everything that will transpire today. Bless my students. Bless me as well, Lord, as I teach them. Thank you. This we ask and in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So we are done, or you are done already. We are done discussing the basic concepts behind the qualitative data. And the highlight of the previous chapters is that you were able to somehow collect qualitative data by simply interviewing people. Okay, now your task is now is to analyze and interpret what is really behind those sentences or those answers you're able to collect from your participants. Because what we are trying to do here is to give meaning to the qualitative data that you have gathered. Okay, so to start, I know that you have just conducted a qualitative study. Actually, it's a study already because you are asking questions. You are trying to answer somehow a question involving interviews, focus groups, observations, document or artifact analysis, journal notes, or reflections. And the question is, what to do with all this data? Okay, and just as there are numerous statistical tests to run for quantitative data, there are just as many options for qualitative data analysis. So yun nga sinasabi ko sa inyo on the earlier parts that I will be teaching you techniques on how you're going to do analysis and interpretation of qualitative data. Okay, and this lesson is designed to provide a step-by-step guide for beginning qualitative researchers who want to know how to apply the appropriate strategies for data analysis, interpretation, and reporting. Okay, so let's begin our discussion. So think of managing your qualitative analysis process like cleaning your closets. The same basic steps apply. Okay, it's the same process. So what you do, what you are doing in cleaning your closet, of course, you have to take everything out of the closet. You need to sort everything out. Okay, save or toss. Okay, tatapon nyo ba yung mga damit na ninyo na ayaw or hindi? Okay, yung mga gamit na ninyo na gustong i-retain o yung mga memories ninyo, kung kayo may sentimental value ba yan or wala. And look at what you have left and organize into subgroupings or chunking. Di ba? Ito yung sama-samahan nyo dyan yung mga ito, yung mga kailangan nyo, ito yung mga hindi nyo na kailangan, and so on and so forth. And organize subgroups into clusters of similar things that belong together. Okay? And as you put things back, how would you group them to maximize functionality? So usually, ginagawa nyo naman yan, di ba? Yung sa closet niyo kapag pinagsama-sama nyo ba lahat ng mga undies, lahat ng mga pang-alis, Sinasama-sama niyo ba lahat ng mga shorts, ganon, or hindi niyo ginagawa yun, something like that. And of course, if someone will go into your house and check your closet, so that's one way of presenting your closet. Diba? Kung maayos ba yung closet ninyo or hindi. And actually, in relation to qualitative data analysis, there are also 4 basic steps that you need to follow. And these are essential steps because this will determine the soundness of your gathered qualitative data. What are those steps? The basic steps. Number 1 is the raw data management, or we call it the data cleaning. Second is the data reduction. 1, 2. Dalawa. Okay. We call it chunking and coding. 3 is data interpretation. We're going to do coding and clustering, or we call it categorizing. And of course, data presentation or representation. We need to tell the story. Okay, making sense of the data for others. So this is actually the data analysis spiral number 1. What you do is you generate the raw data, okay? Then we usually generate raw data by means of interviews, by focus group discussions, by observations, and so on and so forth. Then we organize it, okay? Okay. Could either be you're going to do transcription if you did a focus group discussion, or an interview using, there are different kinds of interviews. Say, for example, you did conduct a phone interview or a video conference interview. Okay, so what you're going to do is organize that data. You're going to put that into a transcript. You're going to transcribe, okay, all your conversations. So after organizing the data, then you're going to do is to read through and make notes. Read through and make notes. So I said it twice. Okay, after that is, what you're going to do is to identify themes, the attitudes and behaviors. And next is to amalgamate themes. What you're going to do amalgamate is, you're going to tawag nito, pagsasamahin yung mga related themes. And then of course, you're going to interpret data. And then what you're going to do is to read through and make notes again. So you will notice mayroong cycle na nangyari dito sa part na to, because that's qualitative data. Okay? So hindi nyo iiwanan yung data ninyo ng isang basa lang. You need to immerse yourself into your qualitative data. Later on, we'll talk about that. Okay, that is the analysis spiral number 1. This is the second data analysis spiral. So where do we begin? So we'll start with data collection. Then we'll proceed with files, units, and organizing, and we'll proceed with data managing hanggang sa makarating kayo sa account. Account means you have presented already, and there is soundness already on your data presented. Okay, so let's begin with the different steps on how we're going to analyze and interpret our data. First one is raw data management. So we define raw data management as the process of preparing and organizing raw data into meaningful units of analysis. And what could this be? Where could this be came from? Okay, it could be either in the text or audio data transformed into transcripts. It could either be an image data transformed into videos, photos, or charts. Okay. take note that there are times to which you are to interpret an image. Okay, say for example, mga pictures sa Facebook, o di ba? Meron doon sa may ano sa meme or something like pinagsama-samang facial expressions ng mga reporters. I just don't know if nakita niyo yun sa Facebook. Pinagsama-sama yung mga facial expressions ng mga reporters from different media entities. Yung nila after malaman na nanalo si Bongbong Marcos sa election. Okay? So, in that particular scenario, you can actually interpret the meaning of that picture. Kapag pinagsama-sama nyo yun, nakukuha nyo yun, it's possible. Okay? Using videos as well. Kung makikita nyo doon yung mga behavior, usually, ito ginagawa ito ng mga psychologists usually. Yung mga videos ang kanilang ginagamit more on the behavior of the client. Okay? In your case, in your case as political analysts or pwede kayong political analyst at the same time political science students. So, pwede rin yung videos pertaining to politics. Say for example, yung rally kahapon sa COMELEC. So, ano yung mga possible na makuha ninyo doon out of that video? Okay, pwede niyo malaman kung ano yung reason ng mga rallies doon. Okay? Ano yung root cause? Bakit sila nagra-rally? Okay? Ano yung kanilang mga ipinaglalaban? Something like that. Can you follow? Can you follow?
Yes po, sir.
Yes po, sir.
While for the text or audio data, ito usually lang to. Say for example, yung text, so say for example, di ba sa interview ninyo kapag, o kaya sa Google Form, pwede to sa Google Form, yung hindi nyo sila pwedeng ma-interview kasi because of the threat of the COVID-19, so mag-send kayo ngayon sa kanilang Google Form. But when you kaya nagriba ng nag-interview kayo, Google Form siguro yung ginamit ninyo. So, tawag nito, from the text, i-analyze nyo lang yon, okay? Sama-samahin niyo, iayos niyo yung kanilang responses. Kagaya ng ginawa ninyo doon sa activity number 1. Nag-manage kayo ng data ninyo. Okay, sinort out ninyo according to the responses as per participant. Okay, and as per question. So that's raw data management. So later on, yung mga next steps na yun ang gagawin ninyo for activity number 2. As I said, this will be the last part of qualitative data aspect. And the highlight of it is you're going to analyze and interpret what you have gathered in your activity number 1. Okay? So that's raw data management. And as you review your data, you find that some of it is not usable or relevant to your studies. Yes, totoo yan. There are responses in your qualitative data that are not useful to answer your questions. Mapapansin nyo naman yan eh. Lalo yung tagilid yung questions, yung mga sagot nila. So those are not useful. Okay? Kasi meron kayong target na sagutin. So you need to focus on that. An example is, we have this transcript of interview data. Sabi dito, I always wanted to get my doctorate but I never felt I had the time. Then I reached a point in my career where I saw that without the credentials, I would never advance the types of positions I aspired to. But I doubted I could do the work. So, ano yung mga part ng transcripts that are unusable or irrelevant? So, nakalagay dyan yung naka-purple, yun. Yung sabi niya, alangan namang ilagay nyo pa yan. di ba? O kaya yung hi, ganon, ilagay ninyo. Okay? So those are irrelevant. Second one is, I can think of a particular example right now. So wala kayong nakukuha dyan na analysis. Hindi kayo makakapag-analyze dyan. Hindi kayo makakagawa ng sense sa inyong data na ina-analyze. Can you follow?
Yes po,
Yes
sir.
po, sir.
So, kaya dapat binabasa nyo maigi yung inyong qualitative data. Okay? Read. So actually, to tell you honestly, based on my experience, my dear students, in analyzing qualitative data, ako kasi statistician ako, so more on quantitative aspect ang aking gamit. But of course, since I'm able to use qualitative data in my study, in my dissertation, so I was able to somehow engage myself to qualitative data, and in my experience, mas mahirap mag-analyze at mag-interpret ng qualitative data compared to quantitative data. Kasi sa quantitative data, numerals or numeric ang pinag-uusapan, ang dali-dali. Okay? Pag sinabing 1 doon, 1. If there is a significant difference, there is a significant difference. But in qualitative data, medyo mahirap kasi nagkakatalo-talo sa interpretation. Okay? So you as the researcher will have a different interpretation of your data if that is being sent to another researcher or another reader. Ibang interpretation na naman niya. O di ba parang tayo kapag nagbabasa tayo ng text message o kaya ng message sa Facebook kapag nagchat-chat lang, di ba? Minsan nagagalit tayo sa sinasabi ng tao, pero wala namang intention yung taong yon na ganun yung kanyang sinasabi. Minsan nagagalit tayo. Tama, mali?
Tama po, tama po.
O ganyan kahirap yung qualitative aspect. So that's why we are trying to somehow minimize that part, yung bias na tinatawag natin. Kasi itong kasi qualitative data, napakataas na ng bias nito eh. So what we are trying to do is to make, tawag nito, to minimize. Hindi ko sinabing remove kasi hindi naman talaga remove yan in any aspect of the study, whether quantitative or qualitative. To minimize biasness, okay? And to give a sound interpretation that is somehow, pag nagbigay ka ng interpretation yan, dapat nakita ninyo na magiging pareho ng interpretation yung magbabasa ng inyong analysis. Naiintindihan po ba?
Yes
Hello?
po. Yes po, yes po.
Okay, moving on. Let's proceed with data reduction. That is how you manage your data. Okay? Babasahin nyo yung transcriptions, yung mga nakuha nyo, yung mga data ninyo. Nasaan doon yung mga irrelevant, yung mga hindi sumasagot doon sa questions na gusto ninyong masagot. Naintindihan po ba? Next is data reduction. Ito na. From the word itself, reduction. The root word is reduce. Okay? Reduce. What you're going to do is to get a sense of the data holistically. Read it several times. We call it immersion. Okay? Read it. Pag nabasa nyo na, babasahin nyo siya ulit. At pag nabasa nyo na siya ulit, babasahin nyo siya ulit. Hanggang sa ma-immerse kayo doon. Okay? That's immersion. And after reading it, what you're going to do is to classify and categorize repeatedly, allowing for deeper immersion. So magka-classify na kayo ngayon. Kaya nga magre-reduce na kayo, di ba? Itong data na to, ito ay para sa ganitong category. Ito ay para sa ganitong category. So yun. And write notes in the margins or memoing. We call it memoing. Nagko-comment kayo doon sa. Ako, in my experience, I don't do this. Kasi, tawag nito, nakatatak sa utak ko ha. Nakatatak sa utak ko kung ano yung sinabi niya. Kasi when I do it, of course, this is the basic. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is this is my experience as well. Yung iba nagsusulat ng comments doon sa margins. Kasi pwede naman yan, especially kapag gumamit kayo ng Word ngayon. Pwede na yung pwede na kayo maglagay doon ng comment. So say for example, may sinabi siyang putol. So pwede niyong i-comment doon halimbawa na, oops, this is incomplete. Ako hindi ko na sinasama yung mga ganun. Kaya nga sinasabi natin na number 1 yung raw data management. Kung napansin niyo na this is irrelevant in a sense na hindi niya sinasagot yung tanong ninyo, wala na yon. X na kagad yon. Number 2, irrelevant in a sense na kulang. Yung parang hindi direct to the point yung sinabi. Okay? Yun yung mga bagay na yun. At the same time, ito na. So kapag na-categorize nyo na, magka-comment na kayo doon. Lalagay nyo doon yung inyong category, kung anong mga categories yan. Depende yan sa sagot ng mga participants ninyo. Okay? Participants, I use the term participants because we are in the qualitative aspect. Respondents kapag quantitative aspect. Nagkakaintindihan po ba?
Opo.
Yes, ang difference natin sa quantitative at sa qualitative data is the number of your target participants or respondents. Of course, we know that in qualitative data or qualitative aspect, kahit mga 30, actually napakadami na ng 30 if you are doing a grounded theory. 30, marami na yan. Okay? Pero kapag sa minimum ay 1, pwede sa qualitative data ninyo ay 1. Bakit? Yung narration lang, nagnanarrate, nagkukwento. O say for example sa documentary. O, halimbawa, ang hinahanap ninyo ay kwento tungkol kay Marcos at ang yung senior at ang pinakamalapit doon na pwede yung pagkuhanan ng data halimbawa ay si Juan Ponce Enrile. So ikukwento niya yon. So iyan ay narration tawag doon. Ina-narrate lang niya ng lahat ng mga na-experience niya doon. Then yun na yun. Isa pwede na. Pero sa quantitative data hindi pwede yun. Okay? At least at least minimum ng quantitative at least nasa 30. Okay? So you're going to make notes for the categories para alam niyo kung ano yung mga notes at kung ano yung mga categories na yung magpo-fall. And preliminary classification schemes emerge, categorize raw data into groupings. Yan, china-chunk niya na. Chunk. Yung china-chunk niya, ito ay para dito, para doon. Okay? Winnowing. Winnowing means you're going to examine. Okay? Examine your data. So what to do is develop an initial sense of usable data and the general categories you will create. Okay? And preliminary set of codes develop cluster raw data into units that share similar meanings or qualities. So yun yung mga gagawin ninyo. And of course, create initial code lists or master code book. Ito yung mahirap na part sa qualitative data. Yung gagawa kayo ng code. Okay? But sometimes there are already code books na tinatawag. Okay? Meron kayo makikita ganyan. Master code book or pag meron na kayo ng master code book, then good. Mas mabibilis yung inyong pag-analyze ng data. Dahil kapag kayo mismo ang gagawa ng code ninyo, medyo mahirap yan. Kasi initial code pa lang yung sinasabi ko sa inyo, di ba? Hindi pa siya final code. Okay? So let's take an example. Tingnan nyo ito, yung coding na tinatawag. Ito yung gagawin ninyo sa next activity. Okay? So notice that we are able to chunk or cluster the responses into 3 colors. We have red, blue, and green colors. Diba? And if you will read those sentences, you will notice that they belong to a certain category. Okay, one category. So let's say for example, yung red. I always wanted to get my, okay? To get. Ano ba yung get? Ano ba yung gusto niyang makuha? Yung kanyang credential. Okay, di ba? Then I reached a point in my career where I saw that without the credential, so pansinin niyo yung sinasabi yung sa naka-red. So ang category niyan, the code that is being given to the red text is for credential. Diba? So, tingnan niyo yung blue aspect naman. Blue aspect said it is for the personal struggle. Tingnan niyo. Sabi niya, doctorate but I never felt I had the time. So yun pa lang may problem na, di ba? It's actually a struggle already. And yung sinabi niyo sa pangalawang blue, but I doubted I could do the work. I wasn't sure I could go back to school after so much time and blah, blah, blah. That is personal struggles. And the green aspect is the identity, shift in identity. So basahin nyo, nandiyan naman yan. Okay, the question is, which chunks can be clustered together to relate to a broad coding scheme? Okay, and we'll answer that in the next step. Nasundan po ba ito?
Yes po, sir. Yes po.
Now, second step or part 2 of step number 2 is data reduction 2, coding. Okay, the process of reducing data from chunks into clusters and codes to make meaning of that data. Okay, the chunks of data that are similar begin to lead to initial clusters and codes. Ano ba yung codes na sinasabi natin? It's refining, developing code books, labeling codes, creating codes through 2 to 3 cycles. Later on, malalaman yung sinasabi 2 to 3 cycles na sinasabi ko. Okay, and clusters or categories is assigning chunks of similar labeled data into clusters and assigning preliminary codes. Yan yung sinasabi kong preliminary codes. Okay. So the coding process, initial code may include as many as 30 categories. So umpisa lang yan ha. As many as 30 categories. Of course, it depends on the richness of the responses. Kasi may mga responses, halimbawa, pag tinanong mo, kumain ka na ba? Pero may mga sumasagot dyan na ang sagot niya dapat lang ay, oo, kumain na ako. Pero yung iba nagkwento pa, ito yung inulam namin. Di ba may ganon? Tama, mali?
Tama po, sir.
So, ganon. So, from the responses, titignan yung maigi. Tapos minsan may tanong tayo na isa lang yung tanong natin pero ang daming ugat, nagsanga-sanga yung sagot niya. May ganon. So, it will not, actually, ano lang yan ha, minimum lang yung 30 na yan. Pero again, i-reduce natin yung 30 categories kasi nga, babasahin nyo pa from time to time. Di ba? Nakagawa na kayo ng initial code. At ito yung categories ninyo. Kasi, yung responses ng participants nyo makakategorize nyo yan. Halimbawa, doon sa isang sentence. Sa isang sentence, possible yan, dalawa yung concept na sinasabi niya. Pwede yon. Or tatlo. Pwede rin yon. Depende sa sinabi ng participant. Kasi nga yung iba, direct to the point, magsalita. Yung iba naman, paligoy-ligoy kung saan-saan napupunta yung usapan. Okay? Naintindihan po ba?
Yes po, sir. Yes po.
Okay, after that is that we're going to reduce codes once or probably twice. Yan ha, i-reduce natin yung code na ginawa natin. Okay? Usually, ganyan naman talaga. Kasi kapag nag-immerse ka na, when I say immerse ha, yung nabasa mo na siya 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, At sasabihin ko po sa inyo, my dear students, na dapat 5 beses ninyong nabasa ang inyong qualitative data. Ha? Starting from immersing it, yung sagot pa lang nila ha, yung pagkakasagot pa lang nila. Tapos kapag nakagawa na kayo ng category, babasahin niyo pa ulit yon 5 beses, at least 5 beses. Okay, para matanggal, para ma-minimize natin yung bias. Okay, again is to reduce again to and refine to codes that are mutually exclusive. When I say mutually exclusive, hindi magkakaugnay. Okay? And include all raw data that was identified as usable. So, paano kayo makapag-reduce again? Of course, by reading again and again. Ayun lang naman yan. Reading. Ito yung magsasawa kayo kapabasa dito sa part ng qualitative data. Now, so what are the sources of codes? Ang tanong dyan, sir, saan kami pwedeng gumawa or kumuha ng codes? Actually, there are 2 ways to which you can do the coding process. And we call it the a priori or the in vivo codes. Okay? Ano tong a priori? A priori, these are codes derived from literature or theoretical frames. Ito usually yung mga kukuha nyo sa RRL ninyo. Okay? So kapag mapalad kayo kapag yung RRL ninyo ay nag-provide na agad ng mga codes. Kasi meron yan, makukuha kayong code. Okay? Pwede yan na halimbawa yung mga themes na lumabas dun sa RRL, pwede nyo siyang gawing code kasi possible yun na lumabas. Okay? Especially kapag similar naman yung studies ninyo. And we also have an in vivo. Oh, ito yung medyo mahirap. Okay? Kasi ito 0 to eh, 0. These are codes derived from the data by using code names drawn from participant codes or interpretation of the data. Ito yung usual na ginagawa when we do analyzing qualitative data. Tayo mismo yung gumagawa ng ating code. Okay? Tayo mismo ang gumagawa ng ating code. Napakahirap nito, napakatagal nito. It's like magic is a phrase that could form the basis for a code category. So what are those coding levels? Ito. Descriptive to interpretative to pattern coding. Okay, it moves from summary to meaning to explanation. Descriptive is the summary, interpretative is the meaning, and pattern coding is the explanation. That's the first coding level. Second coding level is open to actual to selective coding. You are going to move from initial theory, do you have already a theory, to developing relationships, which is actual, between codes, for emerging theory, which is selective coding. Or first cycle to second cycle coding. Moving from describing the data units, you are just describing it, to inferring meaning. Okay? Kung ano yung sinabi. Yun lang. Okay? Please remember this. Gagamitin natin mamaya. An example. Oh, ito. Di ba nakakategorize na siya kanina? Yung red natin kanina is for the credentials. Tama? So, ano yung mga codes that are under credentials na sinabi? Yung career goals niya. Yung, di ba sabi niya, I wanted to get my doctorate. Yung kanyang career goals. So, ano siya dito ng code niya, CG. Pero hindi ko ito papagawa sa inyo yung mga ganito ha. Yung coding, yung ganitong coding, yung we call it acronym. Gusto ko career goals, ganun ang gagamitin niyo ha. And career advancement. Oh, sabi niya, I would never advance the types of positions I aspire to. That is career advancement. Naintindihan niyo ba kung saan ko kinuha? Hello?
Yes po, sir.
Ganyan mo siya kinategorize ha. Ulitin ko ha, dalawa yung categories natin na naka-red. Number 1 is the career goals. Bakit sinabi natin career goals? Sabi niya, I always wanted to get my. Okay? Yun yung goal. Gusto daw niya, makatapos siya, makuha niya. Gano'n. That's career goal. And career advancement, yung second, sabi niya, then I reached a point in my career where I saw that without the credentials, I would never advance to the types of positions I aspired to. We call it career advancement. Naintindihan po ba?
Yes po, sir.
Next, yung blue. Tingnan niyo yung blue. Ano yung code na ginamit niya sa blue? Di ba yung kanina sabi natin, yung code natin doon ay personal struggles. So ano yung mga categories under those codes? Okay? Yung self-doubt. Ano yung self-doubt? Sabi niya, but I never felt I had the time. Tapos, yung time management, I doubted I could do the work. Ito yung ano pala, yung natawag nating self-doubt. Sabi niya, I doubted I could do the work. That's one. The second one is time management. Sabi niya, but I never felt I had the time. Pero tingnan ninyo, yung naka-blue, yung part na naka-blue, ang dami niyang sinabi, tama? Tama po ba?
Opo, sir. Tama po.
Pero isa lang yung pinatutunguhan niya, yung self-doubt lang. 'Di ba? Sabi niya, I was sure I could go back to school after so much time. And did I have the same time with working and a family? These were the things I struggled with as I looked for the right program. O, 'di ba? So, yung blue, dalawa yung sinabi rin niya diyan. Aside from dito sa one, yung felt I had the time, na we call it time management, dito sa naka-blue, sinabi niya rin yung time management. Saan yun? Sabi niya, and did I have the time with working and a family? O, diba? So, isang sagot, pero dalawa yung lumabas. Naintindihan niyo po ba?
Yes po, sir.
Next, yung naka-green. So, importante naka-highlight yung mga ano dyan, ha? Yung mga dapat yung mga sagot nila para nakaka-categorize nyo siya. Ito, sabi niya, finally starting the program with others like me, it felt surreal. Once you switch gears from being an established administrator at college to being a doctorate student, you realize you lose control over your life. You are not in charge in that classroom like you are in your office. But also, once you say you are a doctorate student, people look at you differently. And people at work began to take me more seriously. Ask for my opinions as if I now possessed special knowledge because I was going for the doctorate. It was the same information I had shared previously, but somehow it had special quality. It's like magic. Diba? Sabi niya, yung code na ginamit kayo na dito is yung identity, di ba? Shift in identity. Kasi nung nag-start siyang mag-doctorate, tama? At ano yung mga codes o categories? We call it categories, ha? Ito yung mga categories. Ano yon? Student role. Yung sinabi niya kanina, yung a doctorate student. Okay? And identity at work. Yung siya ay galing siya sa admin. Diba? Sinabi niya. And then, shift in control. Na sabi niya na mas pinakikinggan na siya ngayon. Kinukuha na yung kanyang opinion kasi nga dahil siya ngayon ay isang doctorate student na. Okay? Naiintindihan po ba? Hello?
Yes po. Yes po.
Okay, next. Moving on to the coding levels. Okay, just a review. Okay, again, descriptive, interpretative to pattern coding, or what you're going to do is from open to actual to selective. Okay, or from the first cycle to second cycle coding. Alagahan niyo to, ha. Ito yung kaninang ginawa natin. Yung descriptive, okay, from descriptive to interpretative, okay? Ano yung mga codes natin diyan? Ito yung credentials, personal, identity. So interpretative, Okay, sinabi niya dito, need for career advancement goals. Okay? So, yan, sinabi naman dyan sa inyo. Basahin nyo lang yan. Anyways, I will be sending you a copy of this. And then to pattern, from pattern, pattern means ito yung naulit, yung lagi niyang sinasabi. So, for the credentials, needing a doctorate to advance professionally and to meet personal goals for advancement. So, ganyan yung siya gagawin na if you're choosing the first part. That is just an example. Okay? Step number 3. So kapag nakapag-code na kayo, nakategorize nyo na siya, you're going to do is to do data interpretation and themes. Okay? Chunks or portions of related data that have similar meaning are coded in several cycles. Once coded, those chunks become clustered in similar theme categories. Ito, kakategorize nyo na siya. Pagsasama-samahin nyo na siya as to the theme. Ano yung theme na pinag-uusapan? Okay? Alam kong alam niyo naman kung anong ibig sabihin ng theme, di ba? And creating meaning for those clusters with labels. And themes emerge from those clusters. We call it emerged themes. Emerged, past tense na, emerged themes. And of course, we need to interpret themes to answer the research questions. Now, an example. So ito yung sagot natin kanina. How do you compile the clusters into emerging themes? Yung red for credentials, blue for personal struggles, and green for shift in identity. Okay, begin to see themes emerge. Getting the degree, becoming a new person, personal achievement. So yan. Okay, ano yung ang question dito is, how do broad sections emerge into thematic groupings? I-group nyo yan ngayon. Okay? Of course, it's possible na sa tatlong ito, it's possible dyan na yung tatlong yan, isang theme lang. Pwede yon. Or pwede dyan, dalawang theme ang lalabas. Pwedeng combination ng red tsaka blue, combination ng blue tsaka ng green, or combination ng red tsaka ng green. Pwede yon. Or pwede rin siyang magkakaiba sila ng sinasabi. We call it mutually exclusive. Naintindihan niyo po ba? Naintindihan niyo po ba? Hello? Pwedeng ko ha, yung emerged theme natin dito, depende yan sa case kasi natin. Okay? So pwedeng tatlo kasi sa tingin ninyo, itong tatlong ito ay iisa lang yung kanilang gustong tumbukin. Okay? Or pwede siyang combination ng dalawa, red-green, red-blue, saka blue-green. Another yon. Okay? Or pwede rin siyang isa-isa lang, tig-isa lang sila ng ibig, kasi magkakaiba sila ng ibig sabihin. Naintindihan niyo po ba?
Understood po.
Okay, next. Okay, we'll proceed with data representation. Okay, so interpretation or analysis of qualitative data simultaneously occurs, and researchers interpret the data as they read and reread the data. And then the word there is reread. Okay, meron tayo diyang prefix. Re means again, reading again and again. Categorize and code the data and inductively develop a thematic analysis. And themes become the story or the narrative. Ayan na yung ikwento nyo na. Telling the story with the data, what you're going to do is, ito yung possible dyan na pwede nyong gawin. Number one is storytelling. You're going to do narrative, or pwedeng chronological with order. Flashback, pwede rin yan. Yung alam nyo na, ibig sabihin yan. Critical incidents, yung mga highlight. Theater, thematic, visual representation, or by using figures, tables, and charts. So pwede pala yun, sir, magat yung figures, tables, and charts. Pwede yun, especially kapag yung doon kayo sa descriptive to interpretive to pattern. Kasi may pattern di ba? Kung halimbawa, Doon sa 5 respondents ninyo, ang tanong nyo dahil halimbawa ay, bakit kayo bumoboto? Di ba yung first question natin? O, bigyan ko ng example. Bakit kayo bumoboto? Ito sa 5 participants niyo halimbawa, ang sagot nila ay para mabuhay. O, 5 sila doon. So, pwede yung lagay doon, 5 sila. The frequency is 5. 100% in percentage. Naintindihan po ba? Hello?
Yes po. Yes po.
Okay. So, ano magiging itsura ngayon ng inyong story or ng inyong interpretation? Something like this. Okay? But of course, meron kayong sagot na may tanong na sinasagot. Ano yon? O, yan. Pero ito yung magiging focus ninyo. Ito yung gusto kong gawin ninyo. Team number, example lang to, the degree is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay? Ganyan. Ganyan kayo mag-i-interpret. Okay? Lagay nyo, as one participant stated, the doctoral process is complicated. Each individual process and so on and so forth. Bigyan ko naman kayo ng copy. Ito, ito hindi masyadong, ano to sa inyo. Bigyan natin yan. Ito tayo. Okay, so there are different types of qualitative data analysis. The most common types are content or the domain, the grounded theory, ethnographic, metaphorical or hermeneutical, phenomenological, biographical or narrative. O, di na sasabi ko sa inyo narrative. For case study, mixed methods and focus groups. So depending on the type of analysis that you're going to do. Say, halimbawa sa inyo sa political science o halimbawa sa yung lived experiences of the city mayors in Metro Manila o halimbawa, ang dami nun. Grounded theory yun ngayon. Gagawa kayo ng grounded theory. Diba? Kung halimbawa, may theory kayo, halimbawa meron kayong theory na gustong ang grounded theory, diba, halimbawa may gusto kayong palabasin na theory na, say for example, lahat ng ang mga mayors ng Metro Manila kaya gusto nilang maupo as mayor is that malaki ang kanilang kinikita. Halimbawa, yun ang yung theory. So ano ngayon, gagawin niyo could either be mag-interview kayo, di ba? Pwede kayong mag-focus group discussion, o depende sa method na gagamitin niyo sa data gathering. And then, you will test that out. Gagawa kayo ngayon ng theory. Palalabasin nyo ngayon yung initial theory na gusto ninyong mapalabas. Okay? Ang phenomenological is the lived experiences. So say for example, ano kaya ang buhay na kinakaharap halimbawa ng mga city councilors sa inyong barangay? Kamusta ang kanilang, paano sila mamuhay bilang isang city councilor? Ganon, that's lived experiences, phenomenological. Ang mas maliit na aspect niyan is the case study. Case study. So, say for example, ang case natin sa political science, say yung voting preferences ng mga, let's say, living in the slum areas. Okay? So, pwede yan. Case study yon. Pwede rin dyan ethnographic. Pwede kayong ethnographic. Paano yung ethnographic, sir? O, halimbawa, pupunta kayo dun sa mga tribo-tribo. Tatanungin nyo yung mga political views ng mga mangyan, say for example. Ganon. Naiintindihan nyo?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, so binibigyan ko na kayo ng idea ha, kung ano ang pwede nyong gawin sa inyong thesis. May thesis na ba kayong subject?
So far, wala pa naman.
Wala pa naman, no? So anyway,
Wala pa po, sir.
Ano?
Wala pa po, sir. Third year po.
Second year kayo, tama?
Yes po.
Opo, sir.
Anyway, sabi ko sa inyo naman, itong tinuturo ko sa inyo, gusto kong magamit ninyo siya sa inyong thesis writing. Para kapag kayo ay magti-thesis na, at least may apply nyo man lang itong mga napag-aralan nyo dito. Okay? So next is, if you are working with a particular research design, these are the following experts that provide you match specific qualitative research designs with the appropriate qualitative data analysis strategies. So binigyan ko na kayo. Kapag domain analysis, puntahan niyo lang si Spradley. Pag grounded theory, ito yung mga yon. Si Bergs and Mills, ito yung mga sikat. Ha? Kapag thematic analysis, si Boy at Sis. Kapag ethnographic, si Spradley and so on and so forth. Kapag linguistic or thematic or cultural, si Whitcomb. Okay? And pag phenomenological, ito pinakasikat dyan si Colaichi. Okay? Kapag naman autobiographical analysis, si Denzin. Pag narrative, si Holstein. Pag case study, si Stig. Pag focus group, si Krueger and Casey. Pag mixed method, si Creswell. Usually, ganyan. Okay? And, ang tanong dyan, sir, wala ba tayong software na pwedeng gamitin sa qualitative data analysis? Of course, meron. Meron naman. But of course, ano-ano yung mga yon? Yung mga computer software na pwede nyo gamitin. Yung Atlas TI, okay? Hyper Research, In Vivo, Max QDA, the Nudist, okay? These are software packages either assist with theory building or with concept mapping. O, kasi ang output ninyo usually sa qualitative data yung conceptual framework. Wala kayong makikitang qualitative data nagsisimula sa conceptual framework. Usually, ang nasa dulo ang conceptual framework ng qualitative data kasi na magiging output ng inyong study. Okay? Or a theory. Pwede yan eh. And data voice recognition software converts audio into text such as Dragon. O, may mga ganun na. Kung halimbawa, of course, ito ang kailangan ang language na ginagamit ito usually ay English. I've experienced actually Atlas.ti at saka yung Max QDA. Ginamit ko ito sa aking dissertation. Ito naman sa aking training, Atlas.ti. So, I am familiar with this too. But itong the rest, wala pa akong masyadong idea sa mga yan. Okay? And you can research on to their features on which computer software will truly suit your needs and to your personalities. Okay? These are my references. Any questions so far?
And for now po. So far.
Okay. So,